What's going on? My name is Matthew, aka EZBOT, and today I want to talk about how I have my live rig set up. I'm also getting a little bit of weird sound from my Octatrack. Hang on here. I think that solved it. Um, yes. So you may have seen in the thumbnail, if you were looking at that we had an Octatrack, a Digitech, a Digatone, a modular system, and an MA tracker on the table. And my live rig is constantly changing, evolving, growing, adapting to new gear, adapting to new ideas, new concepts as I learn how to write different genres or just get better at different ideas and concepts musically in the hardware realm. There's always something new, and we're coming around a time of the year where there's going to be a lot of new equipment coming out. I mean, quite a bit of new equipment. I know September NobCon times is when there's just a massive amount of releases. So the rig that I have on the table now, of course, will be subject to change once again. But I do love my setup. Let me switch over I was making music on my Octatrack and not using the template that I like to use. But we can start here and I can kind of explain what's going on with my live setup, and maybe we get to have a discussion about how other people like to set up their performance rigs. This takes me a moment. I have so many Octatrack projects in here. So the project that I'm looking for is this, I think it's called Performance Combo. And this is a template that's only available on my Patreon. There it is. Performance Hyper Combo. I know my screen is blocking kind of what I was doing, but let me explain a little bit about exactly what I'm doing with this Performance Hyper Combo, and a little bit about all the pieces of equipment that I have on the table, how things are routed, how the audio is routed, both in the live rig and when I'm in the studio. I think this is a really cool discussion. This is definitely something worth paying attention to if you're new to hardware electronic music, if you're new to being a dawless producer, which is not exactly what I am. In fact, I kind of, I kind of squint at that or cringe a little bit at the word dawless, though I think it is an appropriate word to describe what we're doing. I don't think that any of us are truly dawless. And if you are trying to be truly dawless, my hat's off to you, but I do think that you are tying your hand behind your back a little bit and just making your life a little bit harder than it could be. I think there is a really fun experience with using hardware, and I think that the reason why we like attractive equipment like Teenage Engineering can get away with developing anything they want because they make stuff beautiful, and that attracts you to touch it and play with it, and that is a worthy thing to do. I think Electron does a similar thing, and I think Modular has that same feeling to it. It looks cool, it's exciting, you want to touch it, and I think that's partly why we do dawless. But let me explain a bit about how this rig goes. I use an Octatrack as a performance mixer. This is an idea that I wouldn't say that I developed. I wasn't the first person to come up with this idea of using an Octatrack as a performance mixer. I know other people have done similar ideas. But I took it to another level. Let's say I even have like these magnetic strips that make it possible. And I don't know why I am feeding my mic into my Octatrack right now. Let me adjust that, because that should not be happening. I believe that's going here, and I don't want my microphone going in there. But anyhow, what my point is that I like to use the Octatrack as a way to like sum all of my audio, and I think it works. I think it works really well. Did that fix it? No, still there. And it makes this marketing mods. It makes a performance really fun and energetic. And in this particular setup that I have going on, I am there's my, oh, look, it's glitching my voice out. And it lets me do stuff like that, and I really don't want this. I really don't want my Octatrack to hear my voice right now. So let me try and solve that really quick. That is going in on 3 and 4, which means 3 and 4 is hearing my voice somehow. And it absolutely should not be doing that. And I honestly couldn't tell you why it's doing that. Oh, I do know why. It actually wasn't my mic, it was my guitar amp. Because my guitar simulator has a microphone on it. That's what I was hearing. Okay. Gee, woo. Got that out of the way. All right, now let me get back to explaining that, because that's the kind of... Those are little things that would drive me insane, and this is like one of the things you deal with when you're doing live hardware is like all your pieces of equipment are feeding into different places. It's cables and wires, and how do you deal with that? And how I deal with that particular issue is I just don't use that much stuff. I try to keep systems small. I try and stay in a simple ecosystem. And I try not to mix and match too many ecosystems so that I can learn something really, really well. So I focused on Electron for the last 7 or 8 years, and I've gone really hard into Electron. I understand all their devices extremely well. I understand their sequencer and their trade conditions, how they route things. I understand how Electron thinks, what they want. If I imagine how their next thing would develop and what it would do if they did make something new, right? When they come out with something, I kind of can just adapt to it because I've already lived in their ecosystem for so long. And I think that's an advantage that comes with sticking to an ecosystem. Now, there's other stuff that have their own ecosystems that kind of I find integrate really well. I think, and this is the M8 tracker, this is what I like to use from another part of my live set. I'd say half of my live set, a very improvisational part of my live set, happens on the Electron boxes. And here's an example. And also lately I brought a little modular rig, which is actually really made me very happy. This is the Nebula Monumatic. We've been playing with this week. We've been playing with a bit of the polysynth workflow. It's MIDI to a polysynth into modular effects. It's basically just an effects rack with a polysynth built into it so that I can get these huge washing sounds like this. This comes from... This is coming from my little modular poly running through a bunch of effects. It works really well. So a part of my new live rig is to bring a little modular skiff with me. This is something I hadn't been doing. I have a ton of modular in my setup, but I use it in a very particular way. For me, modular systems, as I have used them as a live performance, like an all-in-one thing before, where it's like your sequencer is playing your modular and you're using a modular sequencer, and it's all about getting good at that modular sequencer and your patch, and you got to leave your patch there and tie up your cables so that they never move like I did here, and get really familiar with your patch. That's something that I've now kind of avoided a little bit because I'm so much faster on these boxes, and they have so many pre-patched concepts built into it. And I mean that they're concepts that are pre-patched, as in an envelope is already going to the amplifier and going to the filter cutoff, and there's already a depth control there that is, essentially attenuated or attenuverted, so I can invert the depth and all that. All that is already pre-patched and built in, and I love that about a groove box. A good groove box, like the Dig Attack 2, focuses on its particular tool, and so on my drum side, my sampling side, I like to use a Dig Attack. And the Dig Attack is very intelligent. The way it's designed is an intelligent design. Each pattern houses an entire ecosystem, as opposed to an Octatrack where each part houses an entire ecosystem, and the sequencer plays with that part. Essentially, on the Octatrack, the sequencer is a drummer. The parts, which I use as effects processors, or different sets of banks of effects, are kind of playing the parts, and the parts are what live inside here. So a part is essentially a kit. The Dig Attack has its own kit per part. It also has a system called kits, which is just like allows you to just load up a bunch of sounds and populate the tracks. But that's different than the way the Octatrack approaches parts. Parts are the whole machine, how the machine functions as a unit, and that's very unique to the Octatrack, and everything is separate and modular in the Octatrack. I mean, if you want to get into modular, but you don't want to buy modular, get yourself an Octatrack, because it's very modular in the way it thinks and the way it's built. And it's super fun. So I like to do my sampling on my Digitact, and I leave my Octatrack as my effects processor. And in the particular template that I'm using that's available on my Octatrack, or on my Patreon only, if you want to get your hands on it, is this duplicate version. In Bank 1, I have the Performance Mixer template, which is really great for techno production. You know, I can do these like classic high pass or build-ups. Here's one. Up C plus D. I wonder that was sounding a little bit weird. Hang on here. This is my like... There we go. This is my personal live performance template, so there's all sorts of mistakes and adjustments that I've made and saved on accident over and over again. Let me save that so that doesn't happen again. So I have a template in here, right, that has 64 unique effects. Live looper, dual input, separates drums from melody. This is going into the Digitact because I like to sample it. And this is also going into the Digitact just for routing it situation. And basically what I do is I'll play the modular live, but I'll also sample the modular into my Digitact, which is doing the drums, Octatrack doing effects processing, like I said, 64 different effects for techno. When I want to move into like a drum and bass performance, like this, I might switch templates. So I'll just go function bank, or I'll just go bank 9, 1, press start, and now I'm in the HyperFX template. Right? Really fun. So I have 128 different performance effects, and I use them for different situations. So when I want to do an M8 track, for instance, do I really? Wait, we need a 3.5 millimeter cable. Oh, here we go. Chicken dinner. Let's plug this sucker in. So when I want to do an M8 song, this is what I do. Let me get this sucker out of here. Oh my gosh. This is the real deal, guys. This is really what's happening during a live set. So when I want to do an M8 track, I plug into my Digitact, and my Digitact is running the clock, right? So essentially what happens is that when it's time to do an M8 track, I go to my bank that houses my M8 songs, and like for instance, this pattern is empty, but what's on it is, and this pattern is empty as well, but what's on it is the scale that is appropriate for the song that I'm playing. And I wonder if I still have the last performance sheet. Hang on, let's see if it's... Oh, well. We can kind of guess. We'll know if it's not right. But essentially what's going on is each one of these patterns in this bank, 1, 2, 3, and 4, correlates to a song in the M8 tracker. There's no like MIDI stuff going on except for on the Digatone, which I'm using a scale that is the same scale as the song that would be on the M8 tracker, and this scale plays the modular. So this allows me to play a song on the modular, turn that down, play a song on the M8, and then also improvise on the modular. I don't know if this is the right scale for this one. Definitely not. Let's see. Not that one. Here we go. If I want, I can also go in and start performing on my mate. So the idea is that I can do these cool effects. I switch over to a more drum and bass, more glitchy, beat mangling template on my Octatrack for when I want to do my cool M8 faster tempo, more energetic stuff. And then I also have a scale pre-set up in the Digatone to play my modular as just a little extra glitter on top, right? To give me something more to do. The thing about the M8 tracker is that there's not much to do on the tracker when you're playing live. Like you can go into the instruments and it's a lot of clicks to get there. And if you were to use a MIDI controller, it would do these absolute changes and it would completely shift the M8. So that makes it kind of like a little frustrating. So I prefer to just like let the song do its thing and then do these live performance effects and kind of play some cool stuff on top. And it totally works. And I did a show recently in Portland at Modular on the spot, got everybody dancing outside. It was great. So I know that this in practice does already work because I tested the theory at a show. So essentially, when I want to play an M8 track, and I play 4 M8 tracks during my show, and I play 3 Electron songs, and all of them use the modular in some way because I just have the scales pre-set up so that I can just kind of just dance on the modular with this crazy. There's not anything I can't do. There's a MIDI preset programmed in the Digatone that controls my Monumatic completely. And so in the last couple of weeks on this stream, you were watching me get familiar with this idea. I was plugging the Monumatic in. Before that, it was the Polystenomatic, and I was putting the CC values in so that we could, use it in the way that I'm describing now. And now I'm at a place where I'm ready to play shows because I've already tested it out. And it totally works, and it's great, and so much fun. So let me explain a little bit about the MIDI and audio routing now, because I know that this is an interesting topic for a lot of people. So basically, in my studio, this is different in a live setting. In a live setting, the Digitac just goes straight into the Octatracks A and B, Digatone goes straight into the Octatracks C and D, M8 Tracker goes into the Digatone, and the modular goes into the Digitac. That is the live audio routing, and then the output goes into a DI box, and that goes out to the mixer at the show. In the studio, things are completely different. In the studio, the Digitac's audio goes into an interface, the Digatone's audio goes into an interface, everything goes into an interface separately. And then there's a separate output routing where everything is routed back into the spots it needs to go. So there's a special routing for the Digitac that comes back into the Octatrack. Same for the Digatone, and the M8 gets routed into the Digitact. This gets routed into the Digitact so that I can have everything processed through the A and B side on my Octatrack, but also so I can sample everything. Then there's other instruments that you can't see, right? This is if you haven't been able to guess, a Moog instrument. This is the grandmother. And over on my right side, which you also can't see, is my guitar setup and my vocal setup for when I want to sample my voice. And all of that, of course, is subject to change. But all of those things come routed into my Digitac without me having to plug them in. So they're just ready to go, and that's my studio setup. So when I want to go play a show, I unplug everything, pop, 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 and I leave all the cables there, and I have a separate pack of cables for playing events. And I like to play events. That's what I find fascinating. This is what I like to do in this stage of my life. I like to write music, I like to teach this stuff, and I like to go out and play shows. I like to do what I'm talking about. I think that's important. So I have a bunch of cables set up, I get packed, I go out and I play these shows. As far as MIDI routing goes, I route, as you saw, when I wanted to use my M8 tracker, I actually just take over the clock source from the M8. And what I've done in my Digitac, in my MIDI sync, everything is checked in my MIDI sync except for program change receive. So it sends everything it needs to send when it's doing its thing. But then when I plug something into my Digitac, the clock is override. It gets a clock override by my M8 tracker, and the M8 becomes the clock master of the entire project, including the clock that goes to the delays in my modular, including the clock that goes to my Octatrack, and the digatone and the digitact. Everything will just receive that clock. When I'm not playing the mate, I just pull the MIDI cable out, and it's a pain in the ass. I can either just pull out this cable right here and just leave it loosely set there, or I can pull the whole thing out. I'm just gonna pull the whole thing out now. And this is something that, you know, is finicky during a live set. So there's a few things I can do during this moment when I'm transitioning from the M8 over. I can, you know, have my music, whatever music I got going, I could leave it in like some sort of delay lock, because that's something the Octatrack can do, and then I can go to like a new song. And now we're in a new track, right? I can do stuff like that all day. You really want to use a delay lock of some sort or a resample. I'm just bouncing from track to track now. This is a remake. It's actually a cover of a song. It's like some PlayStation track or something that I was covering during a lesson. Go back to weird, right? Everything's just not playing. There's some things you can do. Here, I'll switch back over to the performance mixer side. So I just instantly switched over to 64 different effects because of this particular type of music. This is something I can improv on. So when this song would start, it wouldn't start like that. It'd be like, yeah, this is like the intro to this type of song. Are you considered a DJ, or how would you call this performance? I would say I'm a musician. I just think this is like a one-man band scenario. They just call it live on posters usually instead of a DJ. Because you're not DJing. DJing is a pre-recorded song that you are using effects and performing, and this is, I mean, all these elements are being done live. What's great about this new mute mode is you can hold function, right? We can queue up some sounds to come in. You can even hold this down like this. It's actually close enough that I can do this with my hand, and I do this at shows. And I just set up my scene first. Sounds better. Do some more performance effects and move on to something with like some different energy. Do like a build-up, because I have a bunch of build-up effects in this template that are fun, and I forget how fun they are. And I believe on track 16, I have this with a scale. Yeah, so sick, right? I feel like this bass line needs like something. Honestly, I like that. This bass line is the thing I'm least satisfied with in this track. I have two alternate bass lines. So part of my workflow with my machines is that on the Electron side of things, because it's a much more improvisational experience. Electron's so sick about this. I love this stuff. I can improv with my performance mixer templates. I can improv just playing live with my modular system, but I can also utilize 32 tracks of audio. And if you have all 32 tracks doing something different for a song, you've probably got too much stuff going on, I imagine, because it's just a lot. So what I like to do is I duplicate my songs across the pattern. So you can see like that this is lit, you know, but they're inverted. This isn't supposed to be playing at the same time. And my workflow is something like this. I can do a loop of stuff. Let me show you. Like this has got a delay buffer that's locked in right now. And it's just like doing its thing. I can switch stuff out. I do 2 at a time for stuff that's already lit. Here we go. That just works, dude. Track 16. I do like this track, and it's actually, I didn't always like it. I like wrote it because I needed something fast. I just needed some music really quickly, and I've left it in my dig attack to my dig zone, and I've just been slowly improving it, and it's definitely doing its thing. Okay, so here's another one. Okay, for whatever reason, this song is just so much louder than the other song. Could have to do with this. You can turn the tracks down a little bit. There we go. I want it to match the loudness of the other song. Okay, so this song also wouldn't start out like this. This song sounds good. I'm like vibing on it. So we transition over to this one. Here's how this would. We would like break the song down slowly, bringing elements out, fading them out with the level encoder, selecting tracks with the track, grabbing that track, fading the track down, fading another track down. Make sure you save your project, save your pattern so you can reload your products and your patterns so that you can do this over and over and over and over again while you practice before you go and play live so that it feels really easy. But But if I want to transition to another song, I could record a loop just by hitting yes on my Octatrack, because I have it designed in this way to capture loops. And because I'm just sending MIDI to the Octatrack, it sits on the same pattern, and we can sit in that loop, move to a new song, and these are both at 145 BPM, so it will have no problem at all just jumping right over to that song. See if that's the recording of it. I think that's it. All right, now where I'm in that live recording, we can go to this next song. There was a little hiccup in there for a second. I don't know what that was about. I must have done something. Is retrig set? Retrig's at 2. You can't see that, but it's playing my recording twice because I accidentally had bumped an encoder in it. Retrig is the culprit of these things, but now it should be seamless. Every time it turns around, it's going to be perfect. Make sure you check that. If you're doing live looping on your Octatrack, check your retrig, because that's usually the culprit, and your rate. Retrig, pitch, and rate are the culprit for live looping on the Octatrack that cause so much issues with doing these live loop transitions. But this is last song, right? We're listening to the last song. I could start bringing in some crazy sounds here and fade into this track. Check it out. Here we go. That other song was there, but it would have been perfect if we didn't have that stupid retrig. We could fade this sound out, because it's kind of an annoying sound to me a little bit. And now we're in like the meat and potatoes of the next track. And if I want, I can go to track 16 and play that. Just throw some weird stuff, maybe turn beads up more so that it's like a little more distorted. Maybe take it an octave down, but play it high. I have vibrato built into my patch here. Like, I'm literally playing copy while I perform. You can do this too. Actually, we want a kick drum during a low pass filter, don't we? I always feel like the low pass filter is a mistake. Why do I ever go to the low pass filter? It should be, you know what I should do with my low pass filter? This is actually what makes sense. My low pass filter should only target my drums. So maybe that's what I'll do. So we'll go back to my low pass. This is in my performance template. I'm gonna make it do this. You can do whatever you want in yours. So I'm gonna turn off the low pass filter targeting my melodic stuff. Check this out. Now my low pass filter actually makes sense. Yeah. I could actually have it low pass the drums and high pass this. The melodic stuff, that might be a cool idea. Let's see what happens. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about. Let's like break it down. I don't know what it is about this like weird riff, but I love this riff, but it's hard to get it to fit in every element of this track. Got that rumble bass in there. Okay, so now you kind of see like what I'm doing when I perform. I'm kind of just having fun. I'm just like jamming on these boxes that I can't, it's hard for me to make a mistake, basically. I've set it up so that it's hard for me to make a mistake. Even the performance effects are synced and clocked with modulation that does a particular action through 4-bar increments, 8-bar increments, or a bar, or an 8th note or a 16th note. All of this stuff is just, it's perfectly linked up using MIDI, and a well thought out idea, I would say. So it's really about the systematic approach to live production. I see a lot of people with a lot of gear on the stage, and I think a lot of it's not doing much. Maybe they want to just get a particular timbre from one machine or another, and I just love the idea of utilizing a machine to its fullest potential, if you know what I mean. And so then, getting really familiar with 1 or 2 boxes, I think, is a lot more valuable than packing a ton of gear on the stage. Bringing I don't feel like I'm just like hating. I'm not hating on folks who do bring a lot of gear on the stage, because often those setups sound so good because they have the real instrument there. They really have the Juno on the stage, and I love that. But for me, I like this like more minimal approach where things are very close to me, very hands-on. And very easy for me to stay locked in to my performance because there's less in my purview, if that makes sense. But also it's about getting really familiar with the instruments that you have. And I hear a lot of people say, like, I get comments on YouTube all the time, even with stuff that's being sent to me and I don't even own it. I'll get like these garbage comments from people that are be like, don't get another piece of gear, learn the gear that you have. And it's just like some rando giving you advice on how you should do your life or music production. It's like, for one, I don't care what you have to say when it comes to stuff like that. That's obviously a silly comment because everybody's at a different stage in their production. Maybe they're looking for a new instrument, whatever. Stuff like that doesn't matter. I think it's okay to be picking up new gear. You're looking for a puzzle piece. There's something in your setup that doesn't fit in your head. It's grieving you, and so you're looking for a new piece, and when you find the right one that clicks, that's just the name of the game. And so buying things and selling things is a part of that. It was a part of life. It's a part of live hardware. It's different than picking up a guitar and writing a song. That's different. The guitar does what the guitar does. These instruments do something. When you buy a new one, it does a new action. But anyway, my point is that I don't think it's bad to be trying new gear, buying new gear, testing new gear out, like filling your studio with new pieces of equipment. I just think it's really useful to try and recognize the ones that really click with you and focus on them. Keep all of them. Who cares? They're yours. Keep them all. Buy more. It doesn't matter. But focus on a couple pieces of equipment in your studio that work. That you just know, you're like, I just know how to do it on that, The Dig Attack for me is like, I know how to program anything on the Dig Attack. I was like, you can literally play almost any song, and I can listen to it and somehow get pretty close to programming that song on the Dig Attack. Same goes with the Digatone, the Syntac, the Rhythm, Analog 4, Octatrack, all those songs. I can just make that music because I know how to use that instrument that well. So I feel like if you find an instrument like that. Some people are like that with M8 Tracker or with the Polyant Tracker. I've heard some amazing people with the Polyant Tracker just like doing their thing. MPC 404, fall in love with your gear and lean into the love of your gear. But also, you know, you gotta pick something and stick to it. And I think that that's what's really nice about like a conversation like this that we're having, where I'm demonstrating what I'm doing with this particular piece of gear. There isn't too much here. There's a small modular skiff. It's really not doing that much. It's doing the same thing over and over again. It's doing these huge polyphonic patches. I can, you know, I can turn that off if I want, and just have this be a straight up polysynth. And it sounds good as a polysynth. Do I have the reverb turned on or something? What's going on here? Something's got reverb on it. Might be the incoming. No idea. Monumatic sounds pretty good. I really like this thing. I really like this module. I think that this is the best sounding polysynth in this format. This small a module that I've ever used. I should get some sort of affiliate link for it. I like it that much. Anyway, or maybe the reverb was over here. No, it wasn't. All right, we've checked it all. So this is kind of like, I mean, does this make sense? Does what I'm saying make sense to anybody? I feel so strongly about this idea of building like a good ecosystem that's just really comfortable for you to work in, whether it's one machine or two machines or three machines or up to, you know, 5 machines. I think going beyond, you know, 4 or 5 sequencers on your desk is just a mind melter of an experience where you're really not utilizing any of the potential of any of them, because you're I don't know, like we all have a certain amount of stamina, and we can't spread that across all the machines at once unless we're a machine and we're not. So I think like it's really good to focus on something. Even people like Colin Benders, for instance, let's use him as an example. Giant modular system. He has a particular workflow that doesn't require him to do many actions. Basically, he's changing timbres. Oscillators are tuned to ACE. They're tuned to A minor chord. And then there's some sequencers that are allowing him to do polymetric stuff. And then some good drum modules, and really just playing with the timbre of the instruments, and then changing a couple of notes in a sequencer. But it's a huge system, but it's really simple actions that are happening. Who else can we use as an example for this? There's so many great artists that, you know, just focus on one instrument at a time. I mean, guitar players like would be a really obvious analogy here, or connection to make. But yeah, so this is my setup. I kind of feel like I hammered on exactly how it's set up, exactly how I go about my performance. I have scales set up for this. 2 different performance templates loaded into my Octatrack. I got my beautiful Modbang LED MIDI cables that let me know what is in and what is out. If I do set it up that way. Right now I have it set up to just look pretty, because I like that too. And but essentially you could use these cables. When I designed them, the idea was to have a MIDI cable that you could be like, greens are always ins, reds are always outs, or you could do blues are always in and reds are always outs, or vice versa. And right now I'm just displaying them so that you can see them and hopefully buy them from modbang.com. But that was the idea when I developed it. I really liked the idea because I've had a couple of times when I performed where I didn't know if my cable was connected, like things weren't working, and these just don't, you know, light up if they're not connected you know? So that way I know that everything's connected. That's how foolproof I'm trying to get my setup so that I can be as like have as much fun improvising as possible, but not have any roadblocks. I think the biggest and most mischievous element in this is setting up scales for the modular system, and having them using a module that doesn't go out of tune was important to me, so that's why it's a digital module. But the other thing is switching from one performance template to another performance template, is switching over so many different effects and parts and recording buffers in the Octatrack that I worry that it will have a hiccup at a show. I haven't had it happen yet in this particular template that I have going on right now, but I get concerned that that'll happen because I've seen it happen before. The Octatrack, will struggle sometimes when you're doing really heavy lifting, and I have pushed the Octatrack CPU to its absolute limit with the stuff that I do on here, like 64 different effects and the combination that I have them set up, and then utilizing live looping at the same time and live recording, all of that. It definitely can trip up the OT, but I've gotten pretty lucky. Okay, so I think this is a good time for me to just gas rationalize is what I needed. Time to order OPXY. Thanks, bro. You got it, Rustic. Let me jump into the chat and say what's up, and also let's do our thing. For one, this stream is not sponsored by LaCroix, which is an absolute fail on their part, because they could be just like slinging these drinks through my channel, but they're not. And let's see. There we go. Sponsored by Modbang. Modbang.com. Buy cool stuff. It's my shop. Everything in there, me and my buddy Jordan designed, or I designed. One or the other. Really dope, or he designed. It's a great shop. Check it out. All right, here we go. Let's check in with this chat. Oh my god, there's quite a bit of it. The routing is crazy, Arcadia 831. You're not wrong, my friend. The routing is a bit crazy. It actually, once it's done, it's really easy, and it allows me to do a lot of different sampling scenarios from the gear in my studio without having to plug anything in. Everything just works all the time, and it's always routed directly where I need it to go. Solar 42 would have been a really cool instrument to add here. I see a lot of videos with the Solar 42, and I find it very cool looking. I have my lad's Solar 42. It is a distraction. I imagine so. Let's see. John Carter picked up the L6 Zoom. There was something about the Zoom that I heard was like a miss. Like, it seems like a cool mixer, but there was something about it that I forget what it was. It has like no sends or something, or no monitor out, or only has one main out, so you can't like get the mains and record or something. It might have been that. Someone can correct me or let me know what that is. Aux sends are mono in L6. Yeah, I don't like that. What is the M8 doing? Synchrotron. The M8 is playing fully composed tracks. I can show you what the M8 is doing. So when I'm performing on the Mate, I go and I pick on the next song. So like, say I want to go and play Night Surfing 2. I load that up, but also on, you can see in the little other screen, on my Digitact, I go function pattern, I go to bank 2, and I find the pattern that's associated with it. I have it written down on a piece of paper that's not in front of me, otherwise I'd go directly to it. And that pattern has just the audio inputs at the right volume to match the M8 to all my other songs, but also gives me access to track 16's MIDI sequencer for my modular system in the scale of the track. And that's why I go to that pattern, to get the levels and the scale, so I can perform and improvise very easily. So that, my friend, is what the Mate is doing. Octamed. I need to, yeah, Octamed is cool. A new color to add to your palette. I do love the gas rationalization. Polyend fanboy here. What's up, Miles Patterson? Hey, that's good to hear. I have everything from Polyend minus their new pedals. And if Polyend is watching, I'd sure like to try out the Polyend press. I'd check out the mess too, but I don't think that's something that I would really use. But I do think the press would be nice. I would like another stereo compressor to just test that out because I know it has a built-in high-pass filter, and that, or I was told that it does, and I think that that would be really useful for my particular setup. Right now in my setup, I was using this quite regularly. This is Clean from Chase Bliss. It's a stereo compressor. I think it maybe does. It has an EQ on it, and I think the EQ is for the compressor, not an EQ of your song. I believe it is the sidechain EQ. At least I hope it is. I don't remember. It's been a little while since I used it, but it's a good it's analog compressor. One sequencer for you, John Carter, the D2 driving a Micro Monster 2 and a Roland S1. Well, I think that's great. And that's a great way to do it. I think one sequencer to rule them all. A lot of people are using the Oxy 1 Mark II a lot, or Oxy 2. I don't know which it is. It seems, I think it's a Mark II. Looks dope. I'd love to try out a Mark II if the Oxy folks want to send me one. Let me try it. That's a cool sequencer, but just the idea of having a sequencer, like a Circlon or an Oxy or your Digitact or your Mate or whatever. I see some people using like just a straight up Keystep 37 for their performances, and I'm like, you are amazing that you would do that. Like I don't know if it's a stressful thing for them to do, but to me that would be ultra stressful and I would feel extremely limited. But a good sequencer like an Electron box is definitely the way to go. Do you need an Octatrack and a tracker? I missed the story there. Roger Norton. No. No, you don't need an Octatrack and a tracker. What I'm doing, let's crack this sucker open. Is I'm writing music in two different ecosystems and I'm merging them. I'm using the Octatrack as a merge, basically. Well, not even, I guess. It's not really doing that. It's just doing performance effects. But I have two different templates in there for two different styles of music. And I typically use this one particular performance effects template in my Octatrack for my Mate. It's this really glitchy one. It does a bunch of crazy stuff. And so I like using that one with the Mate because the music I write in the Mate sounds like that often. What else do I have in here that... Well, anyway, the point is that I'm writing music in two different ecosystems. In the Mate, I'm writing these fully composed songs. They play out the same way every single time. And I like that about the Mate songs. In fact, I love that part of my set because the music is so finished. It has all these build-ups and everything. It's kind of like DJing. It's the closest thing to DJing that I do is when I play a Mate song because it kind of just plays the song. But I do go in and make a little adjustments here and there. I'll open the filter cutoff on a synthesizer, add delay or reverb to some stuff. But then I also improvise on top of it with my modular, and then I use the performance effects as well. So that's what the M8 is doing. It's basically, when I'm doing the M8 stuff, it's just these three. When I'm doing the Electron stuff, it's these four. And that's my workflow. What I would like to add, I don't want to add another piece, because this can kind of make the sound, and the Digatone kind of make the sound, and the Mate kind of make the sound, but nothing really nails a 303, and I happen to be very fascinated with 303. I love 303s. I have a couple of them here. I don't have an OG real 303, but I have an analog one, and then I have a TB03. And I would love to have that in my setup, but I can get, very similar squelchy sounds from Monumatic, Digatone, and the Mate. Even my Digitact and my Octatrack can do it. I even made a video of doing it on the Octatrack, and it sounds awesome, I think. But that would be a nice thing to add to the setup. Did you sell your push 3 or you kept it? I still have mixed feelings about it. What's up, Rafael Sarmento? Push 3 is behind me. No, I'm not selling the push 3. I think the push 3 is going to develop into something very usable for someone like me, but it's not, you know, it's going to be a little while before it gets to that space. I could see it being in another year, if not another 2 years, before it's ready for somebody like me who wants to do like basically everything that you can do in Ableton, but on the push and effortlessly in a way that makes sense and is optimized for your I don't know, just for your hands, hands-on control instead of using a mouse and keyboard, which is way faster. Everything you do on the push, you could do 100 times faster in your computer and better with more options. Just everything is faster. So you're always handicapping yourself playing on the push, but I think what's fun about playing on the push is that you're not on your computer. And so that's kind of the whole point for me. But I think it'll get there, and I think it'll become something I use. Right now I have the Moog sitting in the pushes spot. I don't have room for everything all the time in my studio. So I pick and choose like instruments that are going to be around for a little while. Sit something down and it sticks around for like a couple, like maybe a month, sometimes only a couple weeks. But I have been thinking about the Push 3 quite a bit. ZPMC55. How was 9 Inch Nails the other night? Absolutely amazing. Banger of a show. Voice Noise was off the chain, and so was 9 Inch Nails. They were so good. It was very inspiring. I came home and I wanted to make music real bad. Kroglon, I should focus on some solo tambourine work. Absolutely. Modbang sold out of the poly-angled riser. Right now we're in the middle of a transition from, because we make all the risers in-house, like we make them ourselves, and the summer heat was a real problem for us, and it kind of like, we were, you know, the risers were really popular. We're selling a lot of them, and I get a lot of emails from people who really want us to continue to sell them. But the heat caused such a humidity issue. Humidity is so much higher in Washington right now than I'm used to, I'd say. And so it was causing issues, so we're trying to switch over to injection molding, which means that we won't be manufacturing them. Also means there's going to be a little break before we have them available again. Multigrain, lovely. That would be nice, wouldn't it? You just got the IntelliGel multigrain? I would love, I don't have one, and I would like to play with one. It would have to sit in Beats spot, I think. It would have to go in this little spot. You know, my fantasy is to take, if IntelliGel would make a skiff about the same height as this with the 1U and just double this. You know, I want another row, but I want it in this format and this size. Like, I just want it to fill up from here to here with modular. So just like a 62 but 4 HP that's skinny and a 1U in the center. That'd be amazing. Then I'd throw a multigrain in there. Do you ever use the Mate touchscreen in performances? GG. GG, you've been making some really awesome music in the Mate. I want to point that out. No, I don't. I don't like touchscreens. You know, I have the Chaos Replay, and it's their flagship effects processor, Korgs, and it does sound really good, and it is really fun, and the beat match is pretty on point. It's, you know, everybody complains about the cost, and I don't blame them. It's a bit much. But I don't like using touchscreens for anything, honestly, except for my phone, and if I'm using an iPad or something, and that's just because that's how you use those devices. But like, in terms of, it's not intuitive to me to do a high pass filter or whatever controls you're doing with this, and it does, you know, and then you have to reset it, and I don't want to deal with that. So no, I don't, to answer your question. Amen to that. Just get 2 skiffs. I don't want to have another set of another power adapter that I have, another power brick I have to bring, and another device that's sitting here. I don't know, it just seems like a bit much. I'd rather have, I do want another one just to put more gear into. But I digress. Now we're just talking about my personal fantasies. And they're very personal. Okay, so yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about my live setup. I just want to quickly go over it again. What is happening here? Digitac to A and B, Digatone C and D, MIDI from Digitac goes into Digatone, through goes into Octatrack, out goes into the modular. It controls everything. When I want to use the Mate overrides the Digitac, so I just plug it in with one of these cool RetroKit TRSX adapters. I use the 3.5, plug it into the MIDI in. It takes everything over, everything, all the clocks, including the modular clocks, and Modular is running out, going into the Digitac for sampling as terms of audio, and the M8 is going into the Digitone in terms of audio for a live setup, and I do performance effects here with 2 different templates, one on banks 9 through 16, patterns 1 through 16, all full of the same template, and another template on banks 1 through 8, every pattern, every if you wanted to like program each pattern to have its own values, you could do that with this particular template. It's available on patreon.com/EZBOT. Cool. So that's what I wanted to do today. I really wanted to explain that. I think it's a fun setup. I get asked a lot how I do my performances. I am playing a show next week at the 4Bs here in Seattle, a Modbang event, and it's going to be a real banger of a show. One of my buddies who has been running Modbang in Ohio is actually coming out, named Vibes. Vibes coming out to play and do some improv style, melodic improv. So like electronica, house electronica vibe, really cool. But the other performers are great. We got Blake's coming in from Portland that's playing. Deanne Crystal, local favorite of everybody's here. Fantastic jungle rave performer. Nils Elsis is playing, another great performer. I believe plays with like Push 3 and some other gear. Beautiful cinematic stuff. And then I'm playing in the middle of the show. So come on down to the 4Bs on next Tuesday at 7 p.m. That's when doors and music will start around 8 o'clock. And it's going to be an absolute blast. Let's see if I can actually just pull up the poster for you, because I would love for you to see that. Let me see, upcoming shows. Switch this sucker out. Do we have the poster on the desktop? I didn't know. For you. I do want to share this. I think this is a good thing to share. Posters, here we go. Save image. Desktop, here we go. All right, we're ready. Cool, here's the show. So here's the show that I'll be playing this next week. Blake, Deanne Crystal, EZBOT, Neil Elsis, and Pineapple.io, aka Vibes, who I was talking about, who's coming in. We have 3 of us put on events, live hardware, electronic music events, and then 2 performers. But everybody's a performer, but two or three of us on there are actually hosting events as well and helping getting other people to perform. So I think it's really cool. Come out and support your live electronic music communities. They need support, not financially, so to speak, just support as in come out and listen, come out and perform. I think it's great. So hopefully I'll see you at the Modbang event at the 4Bs next Tuesday at 7 p.m. My name is Matthew, aka EZBOT. This has been a live stream on how I perform and how I have my gear set up for my shows. I hope this was helpful, and I hope it provided some insight for you and made it easier for you to understand how a dawless setup might look and might work. And this is how mine works. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week, or maybe even again on Friday, which would be sick, right? Hopefully. Let's jam.